Welcome to Constructive Conversations, Building Canada Stories. I'm your host, George Affleck. Thanks for joining me as we dig into the foundations of Canada's construction industry, learning from the leaders and pioneers in the business. Today, I'm joined by Shane Stirling. Shane's the co-owner of Epscan, a company that was co-founded by his father, Don Stirling, in 1977. Epscan provides electrical and instrumentation contracting that specializes in the energy industry. Let's start the conversation now. Shane, thanks so much for joining me today on Constructive Conversations. I know Epscan has something that's always it's always been part of your life. Actually, it's. Can you tell me a bit more about the journey to where you are now? I mean, it's your life, really, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's second generation business. My father started it back in 1978, and basically he moved up to Fort St. John to start this business. And I was about a half year old when that happened. So
okay,
all through high school and that, I worked in the business after school and in the summers, and then school ended, and I realized I wasn't really set up for going to full time post-secondary school, and so my father talked me into, might as well take a trade. You're working here in the summers anyways, and yeah, the rest is history. I basically got into the business, got the trades, and my brother followed me with instrumentation trade, and now him and myself we run the business.
And that was how many years ago, if I don't mind me asking, when you got out of high school?
Late 90s. Got it,
okay.
Finished high school late 90s, and then started working, and then we had it's been. The natural gas industry is definitely a very boom and bust industry. So we've had some ups and downs over the years, and it got really busy in the late 2010 to 2016. It was really busy for our area, and lots of excitement, lots of fun, really, making money, loving life, and yeah. So,
did you see yourself when you left high school and you're thinking, okay, I'll go work for dad and I'll work in the family business? But do you think you see yourself here 20, 25 plus years later, still working there and running the show with your brother? Is that just kind of the assumption that was made? I mean, family businesses are always complicated, and did you, it's being pretty, besides the work itself, and we'll talk a bit about that, but the family's been tight and it's all worked out well for you, obviously?
Well, no. Half the reason why I didn't know what I wanted to do out of high school is I took all my sciences and all my maths, and I didn't want to ever do what my father did. Right. So my father, again, he sacrificed a lot of family life for developing the business. If he wasn't working up in camp or developing the business up in Fort Nelson or somewhere else, he was back here. And there's a networking piece that comes to owning a business as well. You can't just turn off when you come home. You gotta get out in the community, and you got to meet the people, and you got to make a name for yourself. And so he really, he was around as much as he could be. But as a kid, I don't think your father's ever around as much as you want him to be as a young boy, right? So I was like, no way, I'm not doing what Dad's doing at all. And so it took me a few years out of high school to realize that there's a career here, there's a career in trades, honestly, and that I would have been down the road of academia if I would have had any affinity to school. But
although sometimes I've talked to a lot of people that they've gone to school, and then they've come back to the family business, even though they had intentions otherwise, but then they get drawn in and learn to they love it. There is sometimes it's in your blood, maybe. I don't know, but let's talk a bit about the company itself. It's a contract service provider. How do you decide what kinds of skill sets will help the company to be a success? I mean, you talk about the networking stuff, but being up north and in the specific area and the focus you're on, how do you guys decide on how to grow the business, how to expand it?
Well, so we're very niche in our area, right? Northeastern British Columbia, natural gas is the primary driving force up here these days, and so the trades that we support have always been electrical and instrumentation, and we picked up parts person trade since then to manage our shipping, receiving, and warehousing activities. But so the skill sets are basically built into servicing those particular niches of that natural gas industry. And of course, when you look at electrician, most people think of electrician as the person who's going to come in and add a plug in your, I want to plug in my ensuite, or I want to move this light over there. And then you got your commercial electricians who are wiring up your Walmarts and that, and building your sky rises. And then we're one more niche past that because we're in natural gas and it's a hazardous area. So now we've got explosive environments we've got to think about. If you can imagine, the arky and sparky that happens when your light switch turns off isn't exactly the greatest thing to have in a natural gas environment. So you add the class, the hazardous area classifications to it. So we're definitely over in this niche little world of electrical, right? So when we do, obviously skilled labor, I'm sure we'll come up with that conversation at some point. It's really hard to find. Really hard to find good people.
Yeah, totally. And that's a conversation across the country we've had with in the contracting business and in the construction industry specifically. For growing the business, though, when you look at your niche that you've focused on, but you have some big clients, I mean, is it just consistent work that you get from those big guys, or is there other stuff that comes along that you go, oh yeah, we can do that as well? How do you balance that? Because having big whales is great, but it also can be stressful.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's with that comes the whole peer community and competition, right? So, one thing that we do very well here at Epscan is we've got, there's construction and there's maintenance. And where the electrical and instrumentation, and the instrumentation part I haven't really talked about, because instrumentation is a very difficult trade to explain, but it's all the controls and equipment that actually runs these plants, right? Like, something has to tell that valve to open up and tell that valve to close whenever it's supposed to open and close. And so right from the, we calibrate the instrument that records that pressure, and then we manage the device that takes that information and does a calculation, and it pushes that output out to a valve, and then that valve reacts, on there, all this stuff. So instrumentation is it's really the synapse behind an oil and gas plant. And so electrical, when construction is really busy, there's a lot of electrical work, and there's a little bit of instrumentation work. When construction isn't busy, there's maintenance. You still have to maintain the stuff you build.
Right.
So the instrumentation group, there's a pile of instrumentation maintenance, and there's not a lot of electrical maintenance out there because it's more of a break fix industry. If it breaks, you replace it, right? Motor, doesn't work anymore, you replace the motor, right? So that's been a really good balance for us over this. Again, the booms and busts of the natural gas
kind of
industry.
Keeps it even, right?
And then you got these different clients, right? And so you got the big whales of the world, where it's like, they've always got a pile of work, and they're a little more competitive in that world. And then you've got the what they call the junior natural gas companies, which are up and comers. However they got into production of natural gas, they're looking for a local contractor to help them out. We've got a massive inventory here in Fort St. John, which is definitely not the standard for a services company, but we do a huge warehousing and surplusing right here. So we can usually supply these smaller companies that are like, oh, we just need to fix this. Oh, hey, well, let's do this. We'll put this here. We'll do that. Okay, we can fix it for you. So you kind of provide some a specialty, almost a bespoke service, right, depending on the client and who they are. Is you assess their needs. And then then we go and we provide whatever services that we can that is going to help them with their particular situation.
The obviously things are booming right now. You'd say for now, for you, I would say
things are better. Definitely, we've had. 2016, natural gas, oil prices kind of went the wrong direction for a little while. There, natural gas was actually at a negative. Like you're basically giving it away. You're paying from to take it. So that wasn't a good time. But since then it's recovered. And then we kind of had a little bit of a COVID thing, which slowed things down. And so now
what was that? I don't remember that.
What are we talking about here, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely caused a little bit. Now, luckily, and I got to give kudos to the BC government. They deemed construction and natural gas production as an essential service. So we were very fortunate to be able to stay active and fully operating business through COVID. So that was very, very beneficial for us, and appreciated that they did that.
Yeah. A lot of
But
businesses, I think, did.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
But I
How
lost my
how is
train of
the so?
thought.
But no, but yeah, but because I think that these obviously with what's going on in Europe and Ukraine and Russia but in general coming out of the COVID pandemic as we head out of it, or we're not fully out of it, but we're seeing this rush of need for oil and gas. And obviously, you see, look at stocks for some of these companies; it's just skyrocketed over the last 6 months, year. The demand is perhaps there, but it seems like there's a whole bunch of other barriers, like supply chain, that I think a lot of industries are facing. Are you facing those same kinds of things with, especially when you focus your business has lots of kind of do with tech? While it's in the oil and gas industry, a lot of technology, a lot of things you need to actually produce to do the work you do. Are you seeing a real problem while the demand is now coming back? You actually is it hard to service it because of the supply chain problems we're seeing across the world?
Well, obviously, the supply chain problems are causing it's pockets of difficulty, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just certain things are hard to get right now because one of the big things with the electrical side is the wire, the copper wire. So copper
Yeah.
prices have tripled at minimum over the last 12 months, and it's still who knows where they're gonna end up at. So the supply and even just quoting projects. So you can't even quote a project with copper right now. Our copper prices are. It's like, okay, well, I'm gonna bid this project at this price here, and the terms right now we're writing in escalation clauses to say, well, hey, if the copper price changes by X amount, we're gonna have to change our price. And then resin, and the resin thing really, I think for everyone, the microchips, they're all using resins, right? And that's why we're
Mm-hmm.
having such a chip shortage right now, and that's why you can't get any new vehicles. And so we have a lot of equipment, a lot of again technology that requires chips as well, and so that stuff
Mm-hmm.
is getting harder to find. And then we deal with the same vehicle shortages that everyone else is dealing with. I mean, we are a service company, and we do drive many miles every day to get our crews out to work, and vehicles are breaking down, and there's no vehicles to replace them. And so we're getting that secondary shortage as well from supply chain.
Yeah.
Right. So
So,
yeah.
as a business owner, I mean, it's juggling all these balls. But are you able? Are you confident that you can fulfill and keep going and keep things focused over the next? I mean, we're looking at potentially next year, 2 years, where it's still going to be somewhat chaotic. Does that worry you, or do you feel like because you've been around long enough, you're kind of used to the ups and downs of the world that we live in these days?
Well, I mean, any entrepreneur is already signing up for
Yeah.
stress and chaos. Let's be honest, right?
Right.
It's not an easy path to choose. But yeah, no, we're sitting pretty good. I mean, we just you just learn to adapt and improvise, right?
Yeah.
And review and say, okay, well, all right, this can't we can't do this anymore. All right, what are we going to do? All right, we're going to go over here. All right, we're going to do this, and you get it done, right?
Yeah,
The
that's the entrepreneurial. It's a personality disorder or
oh,
order. I don't know what do you call it. Where you're able to turn on a dime, right? You can we'll find. Oh, I got a solution for that. Right. That's the key to success.
gluttons for punishment is what we call it. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But I mean, even after these supply chain things get themselves cleared up, and you mentioned what's going on over in the Ukraine and Russia,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got a slightly sizable LNG plant coming online here in British Columbia shortly,
Mm-hmm.
and this area is going to supply the feedstock for that, and we've got we've got some permitting issues within BC right now, which is slowing down development and then supply chain, and we're just coming out of COVID, and the longer it takes us to get up to step, the crazier it's going to get because that LNG plant is coming online
Mm-hmm.
sooner than later, and we need to get our act together in the region and start building
Yeah.
and developing that feedstock because it's you know it, the longer we
Are
wait
you?
till we start, the more we're going to have to do at one time, right? So
Yeah, and I think those international issues are potentially pushing the agenda a bit faster to perhaps people who might have pushed back before. Do you think that we're seeing
I,
maybe some more openness to it?
well, I think so, and I think there's definitely more openness, and it's always what's in the news, right? It's it
Mm-hmm.
catches people's attention, and people pay it. And one thing you don't hear about is, Canada's building you're going to start exporting LNG, and it's going to, going to bring tax revenue into the country, and it's going to be really good, and it's going to create jobs, stuff like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's quiet news. It's good, happy news, but it's quiet news. Canada's going to come and step in and help a shortage of world shortage of natural gas due to a war that's going on overseas. That's news that grabs your attention, right? So
Yeah.
this is happening already, and now it's just suddenly front and center because of what's happening somewhere else, right? So it's
Yeah.
a reciprocal effect, I guess, a little bit
Yeah.
of
100%.
world events, right? So
Yeah, it's very unusual for sure, and I think it's definitely it's definitely a challenge in a lot of different ways. Some positive, some negative. Obviously, you touched on it earlier about labor, and I think this is, and I said this then, that this is a theme that I've heard in these interviews I've had with companies across Canada, that labor shortage is one of the biggest challenges. Finding talent, keeping talent. A lot of companies focusing on networking in their own regions to really, to encourage people, especially in the trades, to this is a great place to work. Just like you faced the same questions when you were starting your work life. How are you finding it from as far as getting the labor and keeping the labor as a business owner?
Yeah, this is a whole 2-hour conversation on its own, really. But I mean, again, oil and gas, very boom and bust. So
Mm-hmm.
the workforce is used to the ups and downs. Now, in the past, we were used to be able to attract skilled labor with money. Honestly, in the end, it was a well-paying industry. When the bottom dropped out of the market back in 2016, we really saw some pressures to really cut costs, price reductions, wage reductions, all that. So right now, the industry hasn't quite caught up to that. So we're still lower on the wage scale than we probably should be to attract the skilled labor we have now. Our company, we've always been a very, again, we're family owned. We're definitely employee orientated, and we
Mm-hmm.
do try to make sure that our retention's high and people like to work here, and we try to maintain that desire to come back. You talk about
Mm-hmm.
the network, like when things slowed down, and even through COVID, as the work was, we were still open, but the workload wasn't there. As people go off other places, and we just stay in touch with them, and as it's getting busier now, and continue to get busier, we just reach out and talk to the people we know, and it may not be it may not always be a direct connection. It's more, hey, how's it been going? What are you doing? You interested in coming back? Oh, no, I got a great job over here. Okay, well, hey, if you know anybody, oh, hey, I met this guy while I was on this job over in Saskatchewan. You should give him a call. And so that
Pretty
drives
grassroots. Yeah.
that drives the growth and retention of the skilled labor, right?
Right. Epscan's been around for this long, and you've been in the business for 25 plus years. Can you and you talk about the ups and downs of the industry and the labor? We've got this COVID, we got but what do you think for the next 5 to 10 years? What are your thoughts on the 5 to 10 years ahead of you? What are you thinking for the business and for the industry?
Oh, it's going to be busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the industry is going to be busy. I mean, yeah, again, back to the labor side, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think COVID was really that final driver that took a bunch of the folks that were still working after the 2008 crash, and a bunch of folks lost some good money in their retirement pools, and they stayed working for longer than they normally would have. And those folks hung on till 19 there,
Mm-hmm.
and they're gone. And then everybody behind them that was kind of getting ready, they're also gone. So there's no people we don't have the bodies to fill the seats, and everybody's seeing it. It's not just us. You go all the way from lawyers and accountants through to the trades and through everything, right down into the coffee shops and the part-time work that we need to keep our services going, right? Like it's a big problem. So I mean, the solutions, as far as I see it, the
Yes.
two solutions are technology and immigration.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Canada's not that big, and we need more. And and we need to spread it out, because the problem that's happening right now is immigration seems to stop at the urban centers.
Yeah, they want to be in
Right?
Vancouver or Toronto,
Yeah.
but hey, come to Fort St. John or Dawson Creek. It's like, where's that? But
Yeah.
when you show some of the salaries that are possible, it's very enticing for new immigrants, I would imagine.
Absolutely, but you got to get the information to them, and that's the
Yeah.
hard part. That's the thing we're struggling with, especially in Fort St. John. Is I have to get an interested audience. This is the marketing side, right? I got to market a message in the urban centers that says, hey, there's opportunity here, and that's a bigger question overall, and that's where you need associations and organizations to really step
And
up.
government.
Well, yeah, sure.
Well, from an immigration policy,
from the immigration side, yeah. I mean, I'm involved pretty heavily in trades development with the Industry Training Authority and federally as well. And there's a lot of work to be done there, and I guess, and my skepticism is just in the fact that I think it needs to be a quicker, nimbler group to make it happen. And the government, and they are what they are, and it is what it is. It's just not quick and nimble. So if we're gonna try and get ahead of immigration and actually do a positive change on immigration around skilled labor, and how do we assess skilled labor? How do we attract skilled labor immigrants? Like, just because they're here doesn't mean they're going to be skilled labor anyways. Most people that come into immigration drive towards, I've got to go to school and get a degree in something. They're not even thinking about
digital
trades.
whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah.
We need to we need to go out to people that haven't even thought about coming here yet and saying, hey, you got a trade, you got skills, you want to come to Canada? Look, hey, so we need to do some trades missions over
wherever,
overseas or wherever, anywhere in the world, and just say, hey, are you interested? Does this appeal to you? Because
it's got to be frustrating. I mean, you're hopeful and you're positive about the opportunity, and yet you've got this challenge that it's got a lot of moving parts. But are you hopeful that we're going to figure this out? I mean, I always think it's interesting for entrepreneurs. They always, as you said earlier, you always find a way. You kind of figure it out, and it might be through technology. Or are you, while being bullish about the future of the industry financially and as a business, or can you be bullish about finding staff and finding those employees and getting that stuff done?
Well, yeah. Well, getting this stuff done, yes. Finding the people, well, we'll find whatever we can, and whoever we can, we're going to figure out a way to change that, right? I mean, and this kind of goes back to the whole, and I was talking to someone the other day about the our 2030 and 2050 goals here for electrification and all that, and emissions. And it's like, oh, what are you going to do about that? It's like, well, the goal's been set. We'll get there. Don't worry. I don't have an answer right now, but I'll tell you by, a couple of years, we're going to have a good answer where we're going to be at 2030, and 2030, we're going to have a really good answer on how we're going to get, a really good idea on how we're going to get to 2050. We'll get there one way or the other. And our industry, the energy industry, we're going to be right there along with everybody else to get there, because it's not a one pony show, right? So
and the businesses, that's one thing that you can say as far as having a focus and here's where we need to go, and staying on track is always key, and that's how you succeed in business. Government, as you know, is sometimes, because they change, they'll have this goal, but then they'll change the goalposts, and so. When they give these challenges to the industry and they stick to them, most businesses do figure this stuff out. Of course, sometimes to the detriment of for those who have to pay for things, because these things can cost money. But remaining hopeful sounds like that's where you're at. You're good to go. Let's just get going.
Oh yeah, I mean, one of our best exports out of Canada. And I think northeastern BC and BC, but Canada as one of our biggest exports is innovation.
Yeah,
right. I mean, we come up with some of the greatest ideas this world's ever seen, and just due to a lot of times those ideas, leave our borders and they go away. They percolate somewhere else for a couple of years, and then they come back, and they come back tenfold of when they left. Right. And that's, again, entrepreneurism. That's, looking for easier, better pathways to develop whatever idea you have. Right. And so we'll be there. We'll find ways to make it work. It'll happen.
All right. On that note, Shane, I want to thank you for joining me today on Constructive Conversations.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. This has been Constructive Conversations, Building Canada Stories. I'm George Affleck, your host. Thanks for joining me as we dug into the foundations of Canada's construction industry, learning from leaders and pioneers in the business.